well-behaved students singing their school song. This is what we expect from the Japanese. But is it truly representative of life in a Tokyo school? And is there anything we can learn from Japan about how to promote a culture of respect in our schools? '21st century Japan is an intriguing mix of the new and the old. The country's unique culture and customs, shaped by centuries of tradition, live on in modern Japan. Strict rules of etiquette have survived for generations and are still widely valued in schools.
In Japan, there are lots of rules and regulations. For example, there are even rules about how you go into the classroom, how you enter the staff room. Everything's different.
I think Japanese people's manners must seem quite good from an English person's perspective. Manners are quite important in Japan, and I think it is a very good thing that you learn about manners from day to day in your school life.
Increasingly, the young are challenging their parents' values, and schools are having to adapt to new ways of thinking. Much, however, remains as it's been for over 50 years. Children from the age of 6, when they start school, make their own way, in groups with other children, unaccompanied by parents. Signs along the roadside indicate that this is a route used by school children.
The older children accompanying the young to and from school, it's something we also did as children. I think this is very good in terms of having contact with children of different ages. It's important to learn how to communicate and interact with children who are both older and younger than themselves.
I would really like to take him to school myself, but his friends come to pick him up, and the children go to school on their own. I'm hoping that this will nurture a sense of independence.
Suginami Daihachi Elementary is in central Tokyo. Here, as in schools across Japan, children are greeted each morning by their head teacher. Everyone bows in Japan. It's not a sign of a particularly formal relationship between the head and the pupils. When entering a school in Japan, everyone removes their shoes and puts on slippers.
I believe that all manners which are required for people to live together are founded on caring for and respecting each other. People can't live on their own. Therefore, we must learn how we can strive to improve our lives together as a group. If one person acts selfishly, this affects everyone else. So we encourage the children to think about how we can live in harmony with other people. This means being given duties and responsibilities.
At Koenji Junior High in Tokyo, the students are serving lunch. Throughout Japan, children are in charge of the midday meal. It's one of the ways schools encourage a sense of duty and responsibility for others. They're organised into small work groups and perform their duties on a rota basis. At Suginami Daihachi Elementary, these 8 and 9-year-olds are old hands. They've been doing this since they started school.
In Japanese schools, the pupils serve the meals. It makes it feel more like a family affair. When the children dish out the meal for everyone, it makes it feel more united as a group. And the children are considerate and don't discriminate about who gets more or less and divide the food equally. so everyone can feel good about eating.
みんなが同じよく気持ちよく食べられるようにというふうに考えて配膳をしてくれます。
And although there are times when it can be dangerous handling hot dishes and breaking glass, on the whole, the children seem to enjoy it very much. When I ask the children which they prefer, they say it is much more fun to have everyone dish out the meal.
みんなに配ってもらう方がずっと気持ちがいい、楽しいっていうふうに子供は答えてくれます。
They wait until everyone has been served before they start eating. This has been the routine for over 50 years.
私たちは It's the way we've always done it. In school, preparing, eating and cleaning up after lunch is a given and accepted as such. In terms of what this nurtures, it encourages cooperation with friends and learning to divide work harmoniously among everyone. I think this is the kind of mind frame it nurtures.
給食も 自分でやった方が
Well, somehow the school lunch seems to taste better because we serve it ourselves.
美味しい感じがするような
There are no school caretakers or cleaners. After lunch, everyone cleans the school, again working in groups with responsibilities for particular areas. It's the same at every school in Japan. Children are in charge of the cleaning. But staff are keen we shouldn't paint too rosy a picture of pupils' attitudes to their designated tasks.
子どもたちに役割分担というんでしょうかね。それをすることは
We divide responsibilities for jobs amongst the pupils, and doing so is second nature to them. They expect to be responsible for something. But I doubt whether this sense of responsibility really extends beyond their designated role. If they are asked to do something that's not their set job, they aren't likely to do it happily.
そこまではちょっと疑問のところはありますね。
掃除をやるのはまあ
I am not too keen on cleaning, but the classroom does become nice and tidy, so I think it's a good thing.
Traditionally, Japanese children have been taught that their personal desires must be placed secondary to the activities of the group. Schools have used this system to encourage them to identify and work with others toward collective goals.
学校では班別指導といいますか
In school, we teach in groups. The curriculum in high school acknowledges that even though the individual is important, it's most important to think about how best to get along with everyone in the group.
When I was in elementary school, we used to have a lot of group works, and we used to compete with all the groups in the class. When I was in junior high school, we used to have a Chinese character test every day, and whenever we got those scores, we pooled those scores in group and we compete with each group. So individual success is not a big matter. It's important to win in group.
学校教育だけじゃなくて文化の面で
There has traditionally been a culture of dislike for sticking out from the crowd. Doing something individually would often be considered to disturb the order, and therefore the children are taught to avoid such tendencies.
他の集団で行動するときにその集団の輪を乱した
People who disrupt the group and break the rules are considered as lacking in both manners and morals and get told off.
先生たちにすごく注意されたりとか
学校の中でその集団生活をしながら
In class, I strive from day to day to foster within the children feelings of having fun and wanting to be a liked and trusted character in the group.
誰か、自分勝手な行動をとると
Gradually, the children begin to understand the pleasure in doing activities as a group and realize that this fun cannot be achieved on one's own. This then translates into the children putting an effort into encouraging each other to obey the rules. I think that's how we maintain order in terms of our rules in the classroom and in the school.
教室のルール、学校のルールっていうのは作ってきているというふうに思っています。
At Koenji Junior High, as in other Japanese schools, much of the responsibility for maintaining discipline is handed over to the children themselves. Teachers here tend to believe children follow their classmates' directions because of the bonds that develop in the peer group. The smooth running of a Japanese school also relies on a traditional system of junior-senior pairings.
In Japan, especially in terms of sports and group living, we treat people who have been born before ourselves as senpai, senior, and those who have been born later as kohai, juniors. I think this system of obeying seniors and taking care of juniors is derived from the culture of the Japanese family structure.
Well, in Japan, your senior is older than you and helps with studying and teaches you sports and stuff. And your junior is someone you help with studies and stuff.
In this school, we try to build a close relationship between the seniors and juniors. We make sure to use the polite forms of speech and make sure we say our greetings. And as time goes by, you begin to respect the seniors very much.
One bad point is that the seniors sometimes make comments about the juniors, and this is scary.
If you are treated kindly by your superior, you return that gesture to your junior, and learning this way of behaving in school is very important.
To outside eyes at least, the Japanese school system appears harmonious. But things are changing. In Japan in recent years, there's been a growing awareness of the need to take more account of individual children's particular needs. Some feel this move towards individualism is leading to increased selfishness and a rising number of young people who aren't prepared to go along with traditional respectful behavior.
Trying to encourage a sense of value in working as a group is very difficult at the moment because people value being an individual, or things are becoming disjointed. It is my job to try to pull the group back together, make them feel unified as a group again.
Hugh Oliphant, who works for the British Council, lives with his Japanese wife and family in Tokyo. For 16 years, he taught in Japanese state schools.
British teachers have a perception that Japanese students are very well behaved. I think to a certain extent that is true, but it's not the whole story. At Japanese schools, many teachers feel that behavior standards are dropping. And within the local community as well, especially older generation, thinking that children are not behaving as they used to.
Changes in the way the young are behaving are put down to a whole range of factors.
There's now more of a trend to treat children as individuals. It's not as strict, and schools are steering away from placing children in a mold because this is thought to discourage the development of the child's character.
This is very difficult, but Japan and England are both in a similar era, where the way of thinking has been changing vastly. The authority of the teacher is being lost, and with Japan's economic boom, we have become a materially wealthy nation. The onslaught of material wealth brought a retreat of spiritual wealth. I would imagine England is much the same. This makes discipline very tricky.
Recently, there are junior high school students who have become more rebellious and stay out to around 10 or even way past midnight. In the Shibuya area, I think it's the parents' fault.
There are pressures through TV games and new media which parents or schools do not have control over. So there's a feeling that the world is much more complicated than it used to be.
私の子供の頃と比べてとても変わったと思います。
When I was a child and phoning my friend's house, I would speak politely to the family member who answered the telephone. However, nowadays, the children have mobile phones and contact each other directly. The interaction has become confined between the two people, decreasing the chance of interaction with older people altogether. In this sense, I'm quite worried how the children are behaving towards adults. I think that there are many more people with higher education now, so there are many parents who have similar or higher educational backgrounds to the teachers. In some cases, the parents even speak badly about the teachers in front of their children and undermine their ability to teach.
In terms of strictness, I think now is much more friendly. I think the past was relatively strict, whereas before, teachers would raise their voices and slap the children. Now, there is much more of a trend to try and change the way children behave from the inside through communication.
In Japan until very recently, it was common for 3 generations of the same family to live together in the same house. Now, as many opt to live in smaller nuclear families, there are concerns that family bonds are weakening and that the sense of community has gone.
I think parents and the school today, like in the past, do teach discipline, but the very important community aspect of discipline has declined. There were still remnants of this when I was an adolescent, with the scary old man in the neighborhood scolding me for smoking.
Across the country, school rolls are falling. At Suginami Daihachi Elementary in Tokyo, there are just 159 pupils in a school originally built to accommodate 1,000 children. This is not unusual. Birth rates have been declining for decades, and some think this has led to spoilt children.
There are many one-child families now, and one-child families tend to be more spoilt than bigger families, and the parents are maybe too protective about their children or too indulgent about their children. So some Japanese people think this is also a bad trend in society.
This is a very difficult point, but I think Japanese society has come to treat children very preciously. For example, even from a material aspect, what the child wants always sells the best. I question whether this is a good thing. They will never learn endurance or become able to think about other people's feelings very well.
The Japanese Ministry of Education is trying to achieve a difficult balancing act. On the one hand, it's now acknowledging the need to help pupils develop as individuals. On the other hand, it doesn't wish to lose the tradition of respect and sense of public duty that's been a feature of Japanese society for generations.
The school has a very important role in trying to develop a kind of moral awareness of the students, and the Ministry of Education gives a lot of responsibility towards schools in raising the next generation of young people. So responsibility to teachers is quite heavy.
One of the ways schools are being encouraged to deal with this is to put extra emphasis on what here is called moral education. At Suginami Daihachi Elementary, the head teacher has taken on the important role of teaching moral education himself. Today's lesson's about a boy who's been promised a new pair of trainers by his mother if he consistently scores full marks in his daily spelling tests. He gets one answer wrong, but the teacher makes a mistake and gives him a score of 100%. The boy's dilemma is whether he should own up or get the trainers.
The aim of today's lesson is to try to learn to avoid lying and deceiving, as these actions will ultimately not bring a brighter future. It is important to acknowledge that under certain circumstances, people often become deceitful.
Should the boy own up or not? The children use cards to indicate how strongly they feel about the two courses of action. Some feel he should come clean, others aren't so sure. Moral education is not confined to elementary school. Here at Koenji Junior High, the final year students' moral education lesson today is all about learning the correct way to behave in a high school interview through role play. Moral education lessons aren't new. They've been taught in Japanese schools since 1958. One lesson a week for all children aged between 6 and 15. What is new is the extra focus on this aspect of school life, due to a concern that today's children are particularly lacking in moral guidance.
I think moral education lessons are essential. You can learn a lot about everyday living and how to behave with people.
In moral education classes, we learn how to communicate with people better and about how people might think.
Moral education is not something that just happens in the classroom either. There are activities outside the classroom, especially children growing up in urban areas like Tokyo. There's a feeling that the children have become separated from nature, and this has had a detrimental effect on the students' character. So a lot of schools in inner Tokyo will have activities where students will have a chance to interact with nature.
We grow things such as hot peppers, tomatoes and aubergine and many others, and water them in periods 4 and 5.
Every year has a garden, and we just saw some sweet potatoes. Those were from the second grade garden. They planted the set just before the summer, and just happened to harvest them today. They will now make a wreath out of sweet potato vines. Other years also have their own projects.
Caring for nature extends to keeping school pets too. Most schools keep animals of some sort to help cultivate a respect for living things.
We have committees, and within that we have the keeping committee, which takes care of the rabbits. Within our committee, we take responsibility to divide the duties and allot days to care for the animals.
It's a very popular animal among children of all ages. Also, the rabbit is happy to eat the leftover vegetables from the school lunch.
It is hoped that children learn to appreciate how precious life is by taking care of animals and plants.
Nurturing plants is to cherish a life. Therefore, it has a link to fostering the spirit of consideration and sympathy. We hope for great results from this, and that it will make the children into kind and caring people.
As Japan develops in the 21st century, This desire to encourage kindness and a sense of community in the next generation is part of the Ministry of Education's strategic vision. It has sent booklets to all elementary and junior high schools for use in moral education lessons. They're designed to help youngsters to care more about nature, their families and their communities. Schools are keen to hold on to the positive aspects of traditional Japanese education.
僕らのポリシーとして一番のポリシーっていうのは
Our main policy revolves around the idea that we are small entities as individuals, so we need to all pull together to become something greater.
うちの学校の目標は
As is stated on the board here, one of our school objectives is to help and improve each other.
だけどこの互いに助け高め合うっていう言葉がやっぱり彼らの中にはすごい大事な言葉なんですよね。
In a society where new technological advances arrive on the streets every day and the gap between the generations is widening, there's great pressure on schools to get it right. And for teachers, responsibility for cultivating a greater sense of morality and citizenship in the young is strongly felt.
日本の学校どこも
It is every Japanese school's basic objective to harmonize the balance of the mind, the heart, and the body.
地特体、要するに頭と
Among the head, the heart, and the body, the heart is presently the most troubled area. Therefore, the education of the heart is very important in schools.
ですからどこの学校でも極めて大事にやってます。